a forceful and very barbaric ethnic cleansing took place there. Although to the credit of the Palestinians, one should say, few of the villages succeeded in even withstanding this assault.
And the end result of the ethnic cleansing is 800,000 Palestinians driven from their homes. Ilan, the world is only aware of one great denial, the denial of the Nazi Holocaust in Europe. But of course there is another, the denial of Zionist ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Now, surely, yes, those two crimes against humanity were different in scale. But is not the denial of one as obscene as the denial of the other?
Definitely it is, especially because the people who lead the campaign for the denial of the other are the people who claim to represent the first catastrophe. In other words, the people who fight against the Holocaust denial are those who quite often deny the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe. And I think that's where the moral absurdity and an ethical position lies.
Coming back to the moral absurdity, it just occurred to me, one of our great UK Jewish playwrights, I can't remember which one, in a radio interview once, he was asked to describe what you're talking about. And he made a very simple statement. He said, the child abused becomes the child abuser. In a way, is there
Oh, very much so, very much so. There is this victim becoming a victimizer, in a very quick process. Although one should say that the people who executed the ethnic cleansing, definitely the people who contemplated it, were not the direct victims of the Holocaust. They were there long before the Holocaust. Yeah. But it is true about some of the people who took part in it, definitely.
Right. I'd like now to examine with you the two great propaganda lies which underpin Zionism's version of history since the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. A version of history which the political and media establishments of the Gentile world accept as real history. One is that Israel has lived in constant danger of annihilation, the driving into the sea of its Jews. The other is that Israel did not have a Palestinian or other Arab partners for peace. Do either of these assertions contain elements of truth, or are they complete propaganda nonsense?
Well, the first one is not complete propaganda nonsense, although, as my colleague Avi Shleim has shown in his excellent book, The Iron Wall, in fact, in most junctures in history when the Arab world offered a chance for peace, it was Israel that rejected it and not vice versa.
Yes, there's no question about that. It was always an Israeli rejection.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, it is true that, of course, the kind of policies Zionism pursued and later on the State of Israel did not make it a friend of the Arab world. And it's not surprising that there was a high level of hostility towards the Jewish state in the Arab world, and therefore, objectively, one could say that there was such a danger, that there was definitely a willingness to defend the Palestinians.
But the possibility of driving the Jews it was never real.
I don't think it was.
In 1948-49, the Arabs, as I understand it, invaded only to try to secure the land that they... Absolutely. No question of wiping out Jews.
The balance of power was always such that the Jewish state was never in any danger of annihilation. That's for sure.
So could we sum up those lies by saying that the conclusion they support is this, that Zionism's assertion that it lived in danger of annihilation was the cover which allowed Israel to get away where it mattered most, in American Western Europe, with presenting its aggression as self-defense and itself as the victim, when actually it is the oppressor?
Yeah, but I would add to this that it was a manipulation of a fear that is inherent to the group of Jews who came to Palestine, and you cannot forcefully represent what you have just talked about without a high degree of fear among the people that you control, and it is this fear that I stress, because combating this fear would be part of the reconciliation process. It's not just a matter of saving the Palestinians, but if you want to create any chance for peace, one has to understand how this fear was manipulated deliberately and nurtured by the political elite.
Yeah. Now, Western politicians and diplomats and mainstream media people are still clinging to the idea of a two-state solution. I think, as you do, that it's dead and been dead for a long time. But I have a particular reason. And it goes back to a private conversation I had with Shimon Peres in 1980, when he was the leader of Israel's main labor opposition, hoping to replace Begin as prime minister. He said to me, it was in 1980, it's already too late for peace on any terms Arafat can accept. And I asked him why, and Peres said, quote, every day that passes sees new bricks on new settlements. Begin knows exactly what he's doing. He is stuffing the West Bank with settlers to create the conditions for a Jewish civil war. He knows that no Israeli prime minister is going down in history as the one who gave the order to the Jewish army to shoot Jews to get them out of the West Bank. He paused and he said, I'm not. My point is this, and you've already touched upon it. If it was too late in 1980, when there were only 70,000 settlers, how much more too late is it today when there are 500,000 settlers, that number rising on a daily basis, and Palestinian land being taken on a daily basis?
Well, I think this is part of a plan that actually Peres today, as the president of Israel, endorses. Maybe he didn't endorse it at the time, but now he totally endorses it. This is the idea that it's even more complicated. What the Israeli consensus or consensus position tries to create on the ground is two things: to annex directly to Israel large chunks of the West Bank, and at the same time declaring to the world at large that they don't mind if what is left is being declared as a Palestinian state. In fact, what happened now, which couldn't have happened in 1979, that the same Israeli policy can be seen as part of a so-called peace process, or even a peaceful solution of a two-state model.
Ilan, there are Israeli commentators who say that for real peace, many of the settlers in the occupied West Bank would be prepared to move out in return for generous financial compensation. I think that up to half of them probably would, but that would still leave about 250,000 whom I think would fight a civil war. And that's why I think, A, that no Israeli prime minister is ever going to take on the settlers, and it's why I think, B, that no American president is ever going to ask an Israeli prime minister to take on the settlers. What do you think?
I think it's even more than that. I think it was true again. I think what you describe is very true about the 1980s. It's a very fair description. I think today it's a different picture. Today it's not a matter of an Israeli government unwilling to evict settlers from the major settlement blocks because of a fear of a civil war. It's because the basic Israeli position is that this land belongs to them. Now actually, those who regard themselves as part of the Labour Party or a part of the peace camp would say we are making concessions to the Palestinians. We are giving them something which belongs